Sup guys, PepsiG32 here to scream and yell over the fact that Pikmin 4 is seemingly finally actually coming out. And as a longtime Pikmin fan who's lived through the near decade-long drought for a new game, it just feels so great to say that one of gaming's finest trilogies will finally become a quadrilogy. So on today's episode of the Rank series, I finally have an excuse to talk about one of Nintendo's most criminally overlooked series, while also talking about other projects I'm sure I'll be yelled at by not discussing. But really, I just want this to be an easy beginner's guide on how to get into one of my favorite franchises. And the only way to properly do that is to go 21 years ago to the release of the original Pikmin. But before we do that, make sure to like and subscribe to see all new Ranked episodes now releasing every single month, or just go and check out my older catalog of content. Oh, and of course, you can't forget the new podcasts. To fully appreciate Pikmin, I think you gotta put yourself in the shoes of Nintendo in my personal favorite time of theirs, the GameCube era. Struggling to compete with the likes of Sony, Nintendo was seen in a point in time where they weren't afraid to take bold risks when it came to creating games. Anything to get new people away from Sony and their new competitor, Microsoft. This led to a creative gold mine of Nintendo's most experimental period, leaving amazing games in hindsight, and sales slowly falling left in between. In that case, Pikmin represents everything about that era, and an original game that's weird, wacky, experimental, and downright bold to not be afraid to just be as original as it can be. The story follows as Captain Olimar on a company vacation crash lands on the planet of the Pikmin, which, spoiler alert, is actually a post-apocalyptic Earth after a nuclear fallout. But beyond that, he's left with his ship in shambles and only 30 days to reclaim all 30 ship parts before his oxygen supply runs out. Stranded alone on a planet full of gross animals out to eat out his guts, until he finds the Pikmin, of course, a dying species hell-bent on the help of Olimar to flourish, and flourish, and in turn helping Olimar get his ship parts back. Red Pikmin dealing the most damage and being fire resistant, Yellows being able to be thrown higher due to being lighter, as well as being able to use bomb rocks, and Blues which are resistant to water. But for those who have never played a Pikmin game before, the best I can describe it is a real-time strategy game. But it's definitely a game that definitely goes beyond the boundaries of any genre you'd want to classify it as. You have 5 areas to explore as you defeat enemies with the help of your Pikmin and bring their corpses back to the Onion to gain more Pikmin. While ship parts can be found in the bodies of giant bosses or scattered in puzzles throughout the maps. The bosses are the stars of the show here in this game, as it just showcases what kind of batshit insane stuff you can show off in this world. That's not saying that puzzles aren't important either. Pikmin is a game that will challenge you. It's not the hardest game in the world, but it's good knowing that your Pikmin are not expendable, and you will have to rely on your smarts to help you escape such a life or death experience. This was only more apparent on my first playthrough of the game, where I screwed up so badly I was left with 7 reds on day 18! Honestly, I don't even know how that happened. On the subject of that, you might wonder about my very short save files. And yeah, this kind of brings up into the complaints of the game on how it's kind of really short for what it is. You can very easily get all 30 parts in way under 30 days, and you don't even need all 30 parts to beat the game. Of course, I can easily see this being a design choice to make the game short, almost giving it a Sonic the Hedgehog feel of making the game optimized for speedrunning. In fact, I beat the whole game again making this video, getting a shorter and shorter run each time I play. And speedrunners have optimized their playthroughs to a whole 7 days. So it definitely has replay value, but it's extremely lacking in content with only a single challenge mission of trying to see how many Pikmin you can grow in a day, which isn't very exciting. And come on, you can't deny that the game's advanced AI and beautiful landscapes definitely make this game a technology showcase first and foremost. After all, it was an early launch window GameCube game. That, keeping the game to its short runtime, and other small quality of life improvements in 2 and 3 that aren't in this game, definitely gives this first game syndrome. Look, if you don't have a lot of time on your hands, and you want the quickest introduction to everything that makes this franchise so great, the original Pikmin has it all in setting up a great series. But just 2 and 3 just expand upon the formula that this game created so much that going back to this one feels almost quaint in comparison. Look, The original Pikmin is an amazing game, but if you're just dying, just craving something a little bit more, then you might just want to stick around. You can find this game on the used market with the original GameCube version, or the Wii port known as the new Play Control version. Same with Pikmin 2. The Wii ports can also be purchased on the Wii U eShop, but be quick with that because it's closing down very soon. Now let's talk about snobbery between versions. Look, if you don't care about any of this stuff, then just skip right here to this timestamp, but this is something that I've wanted to talk about for a very long time, so just please let me ramble on for a minute. Of course, I'm playing these games the way they were meant to be played on a GameCube. The Wii version was re-released to have motion controls as well as widescreen support. The original game is a cursor on screen where the Pikmin are thrown. In the Wii port, you point where your Pikmin go. In the original game, a huge aspect of gameplay is getting to control the individual Pikmin movements with the C-stick. It's very precise, and no matter how many times people tell me that the Wii controls are better, I just can't see how this is considered worse than this. It just looks downright stupid. And granted, while the Wii version has widescreen support, I just don't see it as a fair trade-off. And I just recommend playing the original GameCube versions for both Pikmin 1 and 2. But hey, maybe I'm just the dumb one. The original Pikmin was released to critical and commercial acclaim, becoming one of the GameCube's quintessential defining titles. Naturally, a sequel was put into production almost immediately, taking a lot of criticism and refining the elements of what was liked and disliked about Pikmin to create 2004's Pikmin 2. I'm not even going to wait it out. Right off the bat, I just have to say that this is the Pikmin series' magnum opus. It's genuine masterpiece. The game that made Pikmin a series to genuinely care about and respect. And while a lot of people are going to say that Pikmin 3 is a better game, please just wait until the end of the review before you post all your mean comments. But for all the new potential fans out there, why don't I just show you everything that makes Pikmin 2 such an amazing game? The story picks up right after the events of the first game, as the company Olimar works for, Hocotate Fright, is going bankrupt when a group of ravenous space bunnies steal a load of golden Pikmin carrots from Louie. But the president of Hocotate finds that a souvenir Olimar brought back for his son was worth a lot of money. Olimar is immediately sent back to the planet of the Pikmin along with his new sidekick Louie to gain all 201 treasures to make Hocotate Fright stinking rich. The first thing you can immediately tell about this game is its almost unbelievably high production values for a GameCube game. Firstly, Pikmin AI has been significantly improved, and even new and improved Pikmin types. Yellow Pikmin have become immune to electricity, as well as 3 new types. Purple Pikmin, which have the strength of 10 regular Pikmin, white Pikmin are immune to poison, and the single greatest Pikmin ever, the mutant Bulbaman. Tell me these things aren't the most beautiful thing you've ever seen in a video game. But higher production values come with the game's first big controversy, removing the 30-day time limit to make a much longer game, and not being forced to weigh you down, and just being able to freely explore the game's vast landscapes as you wish. While the original Pikmin could be beaten in less than 5 hours, 100%ing Pikmin 2's campaign alone took me 22 hours on my first playthrough. You know, the length of an actual average action-adventure game. That's not even counting the 30 challenge missions to 100%, or the impressively comprehensive 2-player battle mode. All in all, I probably sunk in around 30 hours just to play everything this game has to offer. It just makes the game feel so much more like an actual video game than a tech demo. You know, no offense to Pikmin 1. Now, of course, a lot of gameplay is similar to the first game, collecting treasures on the surface with your new companion Louie, and later, the President Sacho. And having 2 captains now just makes management so much more easier instead of having to run across the whole map to do something else, and it just allows for more dynamic and complex puzzles, man. It really is a game changer. But beyond the surface, literally, a whole new gameplay mechanic is introduced, one that will be the most divisive thing about the game, the cave system. And honestly, I really dig it. A majority of this game will place you in these caves, unable to produce more Pikmin, so you have to strategize the perfect amount of men to take out. The closest I can describe these caves is turning Pikmin into a dungeon crawler, by having you strategize your way through battles and puzzles to collect treasures, and going deeper and deeper through the insanity of caves' dark sublevels, all to reach a huge boss at the last sublevel. I mean, come on, it's pretty self-explanatory that the standout moments in Pikmin 1 were these awesome, huge bosses, so placing a much heavier emphasis on combat and huge, memorable bosses seems like a great idea. It gives you much more of a faster-paced, action-oriented game without taking out the core elements of being a tactical strategy. Plus, it even lets the designers bring in more outside influences that wouldn't be possible otherwise, such as pulling game design elements straight from survival horror games. I shit you not. Of course, a lot of people will unreasonably complain that the caves ruin everything that made Pikmin great, or that it ruins the realism of Pikmin. Like, honestly, who the fuck cares? But more reasonably, people will say that the caves get repetitive or feel similar at times, and that I can understand. But to me, at least, I never felt tired of the caves, no matter how seemingly similar some of them looked, because the core gameplay loop of the caves is just so much fun that personally, I just never got bored of them. And to those people that don't like all of the caves, you don't have to play all of them. You can pick and choose the best standout caves from the game, and still be able to get the best ending if you wanted to, so I don't see an issue here. And to me, something that makes the gameplay loop better is just how much fun it is to collect treasures, as a lot of them are real-world objects that you see every day, really leaning into the post-apocalyptic feeling that Pikmin was hinted at in the first game. But to go away from that dark setting is the Piccolopedia. Having Olimar and Louie talk about every single enemy and treasure in the game, it's such an unbelievably cool aspect of the game that to me, it was worth it to kill every enemy type and get every treasure. Personally, for me, Pikmin 2 is everything I want, not just from a Pikmin game, but from a legitimate, fun, standout gaming experience. It just ticks all the boxes, from the amazing gameplay, to the memorable story, to the high production values. I mean, in my opinion, this game is a masterpiece, and if there's one game that's the play before you die Pikmin game, it has to be this one. So, with such a critically acclaimed best-selling cult classic on Nintendo's hands, you'd think they'd get right ahead at producing a sequel, but nope. This is the Wii era we're talking about, where many of Nintendo's great franchises were left to die, or at least go on a long hiatus so Nintendo could focus on their flagship franchises. Pikmin would at least receive small boosts with Olimar's inclusion in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, the Pikmin 1 and 2 re-releases, and a themed attraction in Nintendo Land, which could honestly be the subject of its own other video in itself. I absolutely love me some Nintendo Land, and it did a good job at interpreting the Pikmin world into a look of that of a mechanical theme park ride. Not a full-scale game as it's segmented into small levels, and obviously meant to be played with friends, still though it did great at being just the small appetizer to the upcoming Pikmin 3. And man, it would be a long 9 years after Pikmin 2 that 3 would finally see the light of day as a must-have Wii U title in 2013. Now, I have a lot of nostalgia for Pikmin 3 and Nintendo Land, as they were my first introductions to the franchise, playing Pikmin 3 all the way back in early 2014 when I was nothing but a small child. So because of that, this game will always have a huge place in my heart, but either way beyond that, my feelings on it are just a little mixed. Now take everything that Pikmin 2 stands for, everything it did for the series. Instead of just progressing forward from that point, 3 instead removes practically every added element that made 2 so great, making it feel more like a true successor to Pikmin 1 than what should be a natural continuation of the series. The caves have been completely removed, and with that so are all the new Pikmin types from Pikmin 2, since in that game they could only be grown in caves. The Piccolopedia is gone for no real apparent reason, and to top it all off, the game has a whole different set of pilots to control. And while I admit I do like this new ragtag group of pilots, they're not nearly as memorable or relatable as Olimar and Louie. That being said, it sounds like I absolutely hate this game, and you're preparing me to rip it to shreds. But don't get me wrong, I do actually enjoy this game. Now, I'm not the kind of person to hold a strong grudge. I can totally get behind this game being different from 2, as long as the gameplay is fun and engaging in its own ways separate from 2. And I would be lying if I didn't say this game succeeds at that. Bear in mind that this game is, again, not Pikmin 2 at all. But it doesn't have to be Pikmin 2 to still be a good game. The first thing that you get into when you boot up the game is the story, taking place years into the future with a whole new team. This game practically feels like a soft reboot of the franchise, which I get why since it had been so long from the distant memories of 1 and 2. Either way, we get to see a new planet, Kopai, a planet on the brink of extinction from a lack of food supplies. They send an elite group of space pilots to the planet of the Pikmin, now named PNF-404, to scour the planet's large, lush array of fruits. This brings me to the first thing I actually really like about this game, and that being the fruit system. See, this is the first time where food rations actually become a gameplay factor, because while President Sacho could supply Olimar and Louie with an infinite food supply of ramen noodles, the new game only gets a small amount of rations to drink. Every fruit you find gets a portion turned into your rations, and only one ration is drank a day. Lose all rations and your team starves to death. Definitely giving this game a good middle ground between the 30-day limit of 1 and the no limits of 2. And speaking of fruits, man, these fruits just look so realistically delicious, and that brings forward the beauty of this game. Leaps and bounds more technologically impressive than the 2 games that were already nothing to scoff at in their time. It wouldn't be hard for me to say that this is one of the best looking Nintendo games ever made, but beyond that, the gameplay is a realistic expansion from what Pikmin 1 started. Larger maps to explore with a total of 3 captains to help at it. And with the classic gameplay loop of solving puzzles with an additional 2 Pikmin types, purples are replaced with rocks, aka the Gusher Pikmin, which can destroy crystals and are the silliest motherfuckers, only second to Bulbax, and winged Pikmin, which I honestly could give any less of a shit about. Fight me on this one, but I don't really care. They're my least favorite Pikmin. They are the single worst Pikmin in combat, so you would never fight with them. You only can really use them in very specific puzzles, and that's basically it. But the beauty of this game really settles with the boss battles, which are easily my favorite part of the game. Huge, dynamic, memorable set pieces that rival the creativity of even the best of what Pikmin 2 has to offer. But come on, only 5 bosses in the whole game? Pikmin 2 had way more unique bosses, so there's no excuse for not having at least a few more, even if they weren't as large scale. Either way, I doubt it would have affected the game's runtime much. And speaking on runtime, the game clocks in 100% completion rate at a respectable 13 hours, but it can be beaten in a fraction of that time if you don't get all the fruit. Obviously, a conscious attempt to make the game feel more like Pikmin 1 by giving it a longer, but still ultimately kind of short runtime. Still retaining that kinda speedrunny flair that Pikmin 1 had, but come on. For being a game from the 6.5th generation of video games, is it really too much to ask for the game to be a little bit longer, or am I just picky? At the very least, the game is provided with a new mission mode and 2-player battle mode, both of which with the added DLC are a great bonus and significantly help the runtime, although I wasn't satisfied enough to 100% the missions compared to 2, as now it works on a medal system, giving you medals depending on how fast you beat the level. And I don't care, yell at me and say it's a skill issue in the comments, but the cutoff time is way too strict for the Platinum medals to the point where it's not even fun. In conclusion, Pikmin 3 is an attempt to Rian Johnson the Pikmin series, making a game that is very different from 2, but is obviously an attempt to make a more streamlined, simple Pikmin game compared to the complexity of 2, which is something I can get behind. It's got more than enough memorable moments from the huge bosses to the scaling story that definitely make it worthwhile. And with the modern, accessible re-release on the Nintendo Switch, I see no excuse for anyone not to pick this game up and make it their first introduction to the Pikmin series, as it was for me. Still though, for me personally, making this game a much shorter length than 2 just makes it feel not as full and vast as it should have felt, but it's not nearly as short as the beat it in a weekend feel like Pikmin 1, making it just a bit of a weird middle ground for me. But I'm going to be true and fair and rank it above Pikmin 1, even if they are both practically neck and neck. They're both really good games, albeit in their own ways. For some people, this is exactly what they want from a Pikmin game, and if that's you, I can totally get behind that. But for me at least, Pikmin 2 just has so much more to love. This game can be bought used for the Wii U or in Pikmin 3 Deluxe, a port I do not own so I can't really comment on, but it does look good. A decent conversion with a whole new set of original challenge missions featuring Olimar, Louie, and the President, that I wouldn't even mind buying the game twice to check it out, albeit having to remove all the Wii U gamepad functionality. And that thankfully gives me the only time I'll be able to talk about my favorite way to play Pikmin, which is obviously the most underrated. You have no idea how great it feels to be able to physically tap where your Pikmin go, or to actually be able to move your hand to command them. It just feels 100% way more natural than flailing your arms forward. So because of that, it almost makes me want to recommend the original Wii U version because of the better controls and the way cheaper price point. But then again, no bonus missions, so And with that comes the last game to fully review here today. I can still recall the vivid painting memory of the ongoing 10-year-long wait between Pikmin 3's release and finally getting Pikmin 4. I still remember when the now famous frustrating Pikmin 4 is nearing completion article was released in 2016, with Miyamoto happily talking about a game that we all knew backstage was not ready for completion. And then Hey Pikmin came out. At this point, everyone and their grandmas had their turn to shit-talk this game in a greater detail than I could ever describe, because, well, this is the only Pikmin game that I actually haven't played. But in my defense, why the hell would I ever want to? Fuck this stupid, side-scrolling, uninspired, rehashed story, frustratingly mind-boggling waste of resources. Look, I'm sure it's not actually the worst game ever made like I think it'll be. It's probably not even that bad at all. But the core concept alone of making Pikmin into a side-scroller is just not a good idea. It destroys the core idea of everything that makes Pikmin unique from the average Nintendo game. Everything that makes Pikmin not Mario. But either way, this game is so bland, it doesn't even have its own original story, as it just recycles the same old story from Pikmin 1. If this game doesn't want to act like it doesn't exist on the Pikmin timeline, then God forbid I'll act as if it doesn't exist on the Pikmin timeline. Looking at gameplay, you just already know what this game is like, and it genuinely doesn't deserve to be brought up as a part of the near-perfect Pikmin franchise. It's obvious that this is not what the Pikmin franchise needed at this point in time. And all it did was just leave our heads scratching, asking where in hell is there a Pikmin 4? What a mistake. But with that, I'm pretty sure I've covered every single Pikmin game ever made. But Chris, you forgot Pikmin Bloom! You forgot Pikmin Bloom! It's my favorite game ever made! How could you do this to me? It's just a mobile game. It's by the guys who did Pokemon Go. That's kind of cool. It tracks your steps. I don't play this game. I don't care. I don't know why so many people go fucking bonkers, like insane for this game. There's people... I have no idea why this game still keeps getting updates. Why does this keep getting updates? This should have died out in like 2 weeks. I mean, it's kind of cute, I guess. I don't care. It's like, who gives a shit? Who fucking cares? Who fucking cares? Who fucking cares? You gotta give a shit? Hell no. But it's over now. The pain and torment of waiting years of the Switch flourishing with no signs of a Pikmin 4 is finally over. Thanks to everyone who has helped Pikmin 3 Deluxe sell over 2 million copies, finally making a fourth entry seem like a good business decision. If this new game could take everything that makes 3 great, with maybe a new refined take on the caves, or hell, even a new gameplay mechanic, all to make a lengthy, satisfying experience, it has no doubts in my mind of being the greatest Pikmin game ever. But with that, the only thing I can do is hope and laugh with fans online as I painstakingly wait for this new entry in one of my favorite video game franchises ever. Peace.